Hashtag the call that changed everything. Marcus Sterling stood before the full-length mirror in his penthouse suite, adjusting his platinum cufflinks with fingers that trembled slightly. Not from nerves about the wedding, but from the champagne he'd been nursing since dawn. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan sprawled beneath him like a kingdom he'd conquered brick by brick, deal by deal, until his name became synonymous with power itself. Today, he would marry Victoria Ashworth, daughter of Senator Ashworth, a union that would cement the Sterling Empire's political connections for generations. Their engagement photos had graced every society magazine. Their prenuptial agreement had required 3 lawyers, and their wedding will host 500 of the world's most influential people. His phone buzzed. Marcus glanced at it, expecting his best man with some last-minute detail. Instead, an unknown number flashed across the screen. He almost declined, but something made him answer. Marcus Sterling. His voice carried the authority of a man accustomed to commanding rooms. Marcus. The voice hit him like a physical blow, soft and familiar despite the strain threading through it. It's Zara. His hand tightened around the phone. Zara Thompson. The name he'd trained himself not to think about. The woman he'd loved with an intensity that had terrified him. The relationship he'd ended 2 years ago because she wanted something real, and he'd wanted an empire. Zara, I'm getting married, and he checked his watch. 3 hours. Whatever this is. I'm in labor. Her words came out in a rush, punctuated by a sharp intake of breath. At Mount Sinai. The baby is yours, Marcus. I didn't tell you because you made your choice clear. But he's coming now, and I thought you should know. The room tilted. Marcus sat down hard on the leather armchair, his perfectly pressed tuxedo suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. That's impossible. We haven't. 28 months ago, your birthday, you showed up at my apartment drunk and angry about some failed merger. We spent one night together, and then you went back to pretending I didn't exist. Her voice cracked. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you announced your engagement to Victoria. Marcus's mind reeled backward, fragments of that night emerging from the haze of deliberately forgotten memories. He'd gone to her apartment after his board had rejected his acquisition proposal. She'd let him in without questions, held him without judgment. In the morning, he'd left while she was still sleeping, sent her a text saying it was a mistake, and doubled down on his relationship with Victoria. Why didn't you tell me? The question emerged as barely a whisper. Because you'd already made your decision, Marcus. You chose the empire over everything else. I wasn't going to trap you or beg you to choose us. Another sharp breath, followed by what might have been a muffled cry. But he's your son, and he's coming, and maybe I'm weak or sentimental, but I couldn't let it be born without you knowing he exists. Through the door, Marcus heard his mother's voice calling, asking if he was ready. The wedding planner's heels clicked past. Somewhere in this building. Victoria was being zipped into a dress that cost more than most people's cars, prepared to walk down an aisle lined with white roses and false promises. Mount Sinai, he asked. Room 847. But Marcus, don't come out of obligation. Don't come because you feel guilty. If you walk through that door, I need it to be because you actually want to meet your son, not because you're adding another acquisition to your portfolio. The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, at his reflection, at the man he'd built himself into. CEO of Sterling Industries at 35, net worth in the billions, poised to marry into political dynasty. He'd sacrificed everything for this. Relationships, peace, sleep, the woman he'd loved more than he'd admitted even to himself. His phone buzzed again. His best man. Car's here. Time to go. But which way? Marcus stood, walked a window, and looked down at the 2 black cars idling at the curb. One would take him to St. Patrick's Cathedral, where 500 guests waited, where Victoria stood ready to become Mrs. Sterling, where cameras would capture what everyone would call the wedding of the decade. The other could take him to Mount Sinai, where a woman he'd never stopped thinking about was bringing his son into the world. His mother knocked, opened the door without waiting. Marcus, darling, we need to leave right. She stopped, reading something in his face. What's wrong? Zara's in labor. The baby is mine. His mother's composure, legendary in Manhattan social circles, didn't crack. She studied him for a long moment, then spoke with surprising gentleness. Your father and I built this empire for you. We arranged this marriage to secure your legacy, but we built it so you could have choices, not so you become a prisoner. She adjusted his boutonniere with practiced hands. So choose, Marcus. But choose the life you can live with, not the life you think you're supposed to want. She left him alone with his reflection and his ringing phone. Victoria calling now, probably radiant and eager, completely unaware that her groom was contemplating destroying both their futures. Marcus thought about Zara, her laugh, the way she'd challenge him, how she'd seen to the the man underneath and loved him anyway. He thought about a son he'd never met, never known existed, who was being born into the world at this very moment. And he thought about Victoria, who deserved better than a husband whose heart had always belonged to someone else. The wedding of the decade would become the scandal of the decade either way. Marcus picked up his phone, made his choice, and walked toward whichever door he could live with opening. Some fortunes couldn't be measured in billions, and some legacies couldn't be built with strategic alliances. The Sterling Empire would survive whatever he decided next. The question was whether he would.